welcome to this episode of Expro Experts Unplugged. Today we're going to discuss production optimization, and I'm delighted to be joined by Iain Farley. My name is Andrew Bradshaw. Let's do it. Iain, first of all, if you can kind of talk to me about your experience in production optimization and your career with Expro, then we'll get into the meaty stuff.
Sure. Okay. My name's Iain Farley. I'm the Vice President for Expro for Europe and Sub-Sahara Africa. So I guess my journey started right back at university. I studied petroleum engineering.
Okay.
So, understanding wells and reservoirs is a fundamental part of my studies.
Yeah.
I joined the industry here in Aberdeen for Mobil North Sea. And my first, few years were working as a completions intervention engineer, offshore North Sea. So that was sort of my background in the industry. Since then, worked for a large number of companies, and involved in a number of production optimization projects over the time. And what I really like about Expro now, since I've come back, I rejoined about 2.5 years ago, is that we just have a phenomenal capability across our well surveillance, intervention, production groups, and integrating those into a sort of single production optimization service is such a great opportunity for us.
Production optimization, I want to kind of break that down. It sounds like a complex issue, but what is it in a nutshell?
In a nutshell, it's really just having a structured approach to maximising productions from existing wells.
Right.
And you can do that with a relatively sort of marginal investment, but obviously, with quite in some cases, significant production gain from it. So it's really about maximising the value of these assets that you have by making sure they're producing to their optimum potential.
Production optimization, it sounds quite complex, but how do we break it down into something simple that people can understand?
So I think the way to explain that is most probably in a couple of, I'd say, threes. So one really, it's a process. So production optimization is a process.
Yeah.
And it really starts with surveillance in terms of understanding the wells and data from wells. The second part of that process is then analyzing that data. And then the third part is going to be the remediation, the intervention activities that you're going to undertake. So that, in its sense, is the process. And then you apply that process, I think, in three different components or parts of the well. So you look at the interface from the reservoir to the well bore and how you can optimize production from the reservoir into the well.
Okay.
The second component of that is then the well bore itself and how you could optimize the what we call vertical lift performance of a well, and how the production flows from the bottom of the well to the top of the well.
Yeah.
And then the third component of that is the interface between the well or the network of wells in the production system and how you optimize that interface. So by taking that sort of three-step approach of surveillance, analysis, and then remediation, and applying that to the interface from the reservoir to the well itself, and then the interface to the production system, allows you to break down something that can be quite complex, but actually you could then make it quite simple.
Well, looking at the first part of that, you talked about surveillance, and I just want to talk about the data side of it. You touched on the data, but what kind of data does Expro need to support production optimization, customers' production optimization?
Yeah, I think the first thing to say is that really production optimization is all about data. It's really difficult to optimize the performance of a well without having data. So again, from our perspective, I'll talk about this in threes, is, we can look at data from three perspectives. One is the well at surface in terms of how it's producing. And we have a range of well surveillance services that are non-intrusive, that allow us to understand how a well is producing at surface or what liquids or gases are being injected into a well. The second sort of area, I guess, of data is really within the well bore itself,
right,
and the flow characteristics within the well. So, for example, if you have artificial lift systems, how they might be performing, how the flow distribution within the well looks. And then, the third piece is the data we gather to look at the inflow from the reservoir into the well bore. So, from Expo's perspective, we can provide a suite of cased hole services within the well to be able to acquire some of that inflow performance data. We can provide distributed surveys along the well itself to look at how the well bore is flowing. And we've got, as I said, a range of sort of non-intrusive services at surface that can allow us to understand how the well is producing at surface and then interfacing with the production system. So, that's again, quite a comprehensive set of data. You don't necessarily need to have all of it to optimize the production from a well, but if you wanted to do something quite comprehensive, you'd need to look at those 3 different components.
Yeah, but that, turn outside of that, level of data acquisition sounds like it's expensive. So how do we actually, or how does Expro manage to integrate data acquisition into other aspects to maybe reduce overall costs, make it more cost effective?
So I think there's different ways of looking at it. A production optimization project could be something quite simple.
Yeah.
So it could be looking at a single well. It could just be looking at surface data and how to optimize things at surface. Or it could be a network of wells, and a whole production system and a comprehensive process of gathering everything from the reservoir to surface. So to start with, I think there's different scales of complexity. And the simplest end of things might just be gathering some surface production injectivity data. We can do that, as I said, with non-intrusive meters. We could do that as part of another service we might be offering, for the customer on the platform. So some of these things can be simple add-ons to other services that we have. Like I said, in other cases, for more comprehensive projects, it may be we need to perform dedicated intervention campaigns where we're running tools within well bores to gather data from within the well. So again, I think it's very much bespoke. It's very much about the opportunity, the nature of the wells, and what the customer ultimately wants to achieve, with the complexity and budget they wish to invest. Maybe that's driven by the opportunity they feel they have to actually increase production in the first place.
Okay, true. You talked about remediation earlier on, but can you talk me through some of the other aspects of the services required to enhance production optimization?
Yeah, so maybe let's start at the reservoir and work our way up. That might be the best thing to do. So, quite often part of this process is identifying where water might be produced and isolating water. Yeah. So there are things that we can do in terms of running plugs and straddles to isolate water producing zones once we've identified where they are. There may be the opportunity to bring new hydrocarbon zones onto production that were previously bypassed and haven't been completed. So we typically do that by running pulse neutron tools to look at where these zones might be behind casing, and then providing the perforating services to bring these zones onto production. So, isolating water, incremental hydrocarbon from the reservoir is great. In terms of the wellbore itself, quite often there may be artificial lift systems which are not properly optimized.
Right.
So we might run distributed services looking at the performance of gas lift systems.
Okay.
And then maybe retrofit gas lift valves in terms of maybe deepening points of injection, or looking at resizing of existing valves within the completion string.
Yeah.
It may be there are well integrity issues that are compromising production from a well. So again, we have a suite of products and services that we can use to patch, damage holes in completion strings, address issues with the integrity of safety valves, for example. All of those things are allowing the well to produce to its potential by mitigating any non-productive time, or any consequences of being able to limit production as a result of those well integrity issues. So I think whether it's, as I said, whether it's behind casing reservoir, whether it's water, whether it's vertical lift performance and artificial lift systems, within the Expro portfolio, there's a range of intervention services, acquisition tools that we can do to obviously address some of those concerns. The final point I'll just touch on is the actual production system itself, because quite often wells are unable to produce to their potential because of constraints with the surface production facilities. It might be an inability to manage solids, it might be an inability to manage volumes of water or gas. And what we can do within our production systems group is look at how we can complement the existing production facilities to allow them to receive what the well's producing and not have maybe some of the constraints that it was originally designed to. So that whole spectrum of, I said, well, reservoir through to production system, we have services that can help in all of those different applications.
Okay, and are those services siloed? Are the aspects of production optimization siloed, or can they be integrated? And if they can be integrated, what are the benefits of integration?
Well, I think you can approach production optimization as a standalone process, as we've sort of described, where we're acquiring data, analysing data and performing actions. Or it could become, I would say, something that's embedded within the well management. So I'll give a simple example. We're in the UK right now, we're seeing a large increase in P&A activity.
Yeah.
And in order to prepare and plan for that P&A activity, there's a requirement in a lot of cases to run pre-P&A campaigns to survey wells to understand what some of those P&A and decommissioning operations are going to have to manage.
Yeah.
As part of doing some of those pre-P&A surveys, that's an opportunity to look at, production optimization. Are there some simple things that can be done? Looking at those wells in their last stages of life to just squeeze a little bit of hydrocarbon from them before, we formally declare COP on those productions and cease production permanently. So there's absolutely, to your point, the opportunity to combine production optimization with other activities that might be happening, at the well site. And I would say, a lot of what Expro can provide, especially some of the well surveillance technologies at surface, we can do that by using multi-trained people, and we can do that effectively by providing an add-on to an existing service that we might have, which makes it more cost effective for the customer.
Okay. You've talked about data acquisition. Obviously, it sounds like digitalization has played a key part in advancing production optimization. Digitalization is changing all the time, new technologies. How do you see AI and other digital aspects enhancing production optimization?
Well, I think undoubtedly AI and digitalization plays a real important factor in production optimization. Yeah. It all starts with the ability to have data. So, what I would say is, I guess, as wells are more instrumented and as that data becomes accessible in real time, then clearly there's the opportunity for, systems to apply AI to start predicting things like water breakthrough, corrosive issues, and to be able to optimize production. The challenge I think we have in a lot of the industry is a lot of the mature fields where there's an opportunity to enhance production. Those wells necessarily aren't equipped with the sensors and the instrumentation that would naturally lead to some form of automation. What all of our services have when we acquire data, they're all effectively digital enabled. Yeah. So when we are acquiring data, whether that be surface or in the well, we make sure that data is immediately available to our data analysis centers through our data to desk systems. So we're able to provide effectively a real-time optimization service. But in terms of AI, I think what you'd really need to have is, a suite of wells that are fully instrumented in the field, and that data obviously being available real time. So I think effectively new field developments, AI's got the potential. I think on the older fields, then there's still the requirement for us to actually go out and provide a service to acquire a lot of the data in the first place.
Yeah. You touched on plug and abandonment, P&A, earlier on, and production optimization to a layman doesn't sound like it fits with P&A, but just talk us through how production optimization supports P&A.
Well, so as part, P&A, or well decommissioning as we sort of refer to it, is quite a complex process, and there's a lot of planning that's involved because of the uncertainties of what operators might find in their wells. So, as part of that planning process, there's a requirement typically to perform some form of pre-P&A surveys on wells. And that's all about de-risking the actual well decommissioning phase by understanding what we're going to need to do with those wells to effectively decommission them safely. The point I was making earlier was, I think as part of that pre-P&A survey activity, there's an opportunity still to optimise what life there may still be within the wells on those platforms. Because those surveys might be conducted 6, 12, 18 months before the actual decommissioning takes place, or the cessation of production is declared on a platform. And for that last period of late life, there's still an opportunity to squeeze a bit more from those wells.
Okay. Just coming back to the general production optimization, from an Expro perspective, how does Expro support production optimization? What technologies has Expro got that really stand out in this field?
Okay, I think in terms of technologies, maybe I'll just dwell on 3 or 4. I think from a surface well surveillance perspective, we have a We use we have a Q-Pulse service that integrates our clamp-on meters and our multi-trace. So Q-Pulse allows us to understand what's happening within the well in a non-intrusive basis.
Yeah.
So that's a really clever way of understanding how wells are performing and also how maybe lift systems are performing without affecting production. So Q-Pulse is a fantastic service for understanding what's happening at the well. When it comes to well integrity issues, we recently acquired CoreTrax last year, and with CoreTrax we acquired a number of well integrity capabilities. They're solid expandables, being a particular technology of interest, maybe in aged wells where there might be, tubular leaks or well integrity issues that inhibiting production. And then, when I think about when I think about maybe some of the integrity issues that you might have, for example, with safety valves and wells that are maybe shut in because of safety valves and scaling issues. We have a technology called coil hose that's effectively a lightweight circulating system that allows us to be able to go into wells on a much smaller footprint than a traditional coiled tubing unit, but to be able to place acid around safety valves and upper completions to be able to address some of those integrity issues that again might be affecting the customer's ability to flow wells. So there's a few technologies there that we can certainly play into production optimization. I think for us as a company, I think what we need to do is continually highlight the fact that there's an opportunity to optimize production from wells, to be able to demonstrate how we're deploying technologies to do that, to be able to provide case studies to clients to show how we can deliver results with marginal incremental investment. It's not unusual to look at fields, especially those that are artificially lifted, and they're not large capex. Brownfields tend to not attract a lot of large capex from customers.
Of course.
OpEx budgets are always under constant constraint.
Absolutely.
So it's not typically hard to find opportunities to enhance production. And typically when you look at a field that's artificially lifted, you might find 5, 10, 15% production gain opportunity with a bit more focus and a bit more attention. So our job, I guess, is to help our customers nurture their wells and to be able to promote the technologies and talk about the case studies. To try and to gain that interest in what we do.
Yeah, you've kind of answered my next question in a sense, I think, because I was going to say that to the outsider, it may appear that production optimization is complex and a broad process, but from what you're saying, it sounds as though you can still make incremental small changes.
Absolutely. Yeah. It can be whatever a customer wants it to be. And ultimately I think that's down to the well, down to the asset, down to what we think is the opportunity to enhance production. And as I said, it could be a very simple bolt-on to an existing service we're doing, looking at how wells are producing and how lift systems might be performing, to something much more complex where the gain justifies a much bigger investment.
One of the aspects that we've not touched on is the cultural aspect. So how do we encourage production optimization as a culturally acceptable process, and how can Expro help companies, customers, to adopt that culture of production optimization?
Well, I think culture is a good word for it, because I think nurturing your wells, it's a cultural approach, isn't it? And production optimization is all about maximizing the value of your wells. So I think from our perspective, we need to just, I think, constantly promote what we can do in terms of the technology portfolio that we have, the agile, I would say, fit for purpose approach that we can provide to our customers. So as I said, whether it's something really simple, there's a single well, or just looking at the allocation of lift gas on a platform, that's quite a simple thing to do that can provide immediate benefit. Or again, promoting, a more systematic and a more rigorous approach to maybe a more complex field, but where the reward is worth more. So I think from our perspective, it's just continually talking about the success stories and promoting the success stories and trying to encourage more customers to step into that world of, nurturing their mature wells, and just seeing, the extent to which they might be able to squeeze some more production from them. And with that, success breeds success. And there's the opportunity to do bigger and better things.
Okay. I've got one last question for you because I know that your time is tight. But we've talked about production optimization. Maybe the people watching this might have a general assumption that we're talking just about oil and gas, but we're not just talking about oil and gas here, are we? So talk to us about the other sectors that can benefit from production optimization.
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. So, I mean, really production optimization is about wells, and so if you think about a geothermal well, I mean, the whole purpose of a geothermal well is to produce, steam or, high temperature water, and again, there's an opportunity within a geothermal well to look at how we can optimize that flow of steam or heated water to surface. The flip side of that might be CCUS, where the whole purpose of CCUS is obviously to inject CO2 into a reservoir.
Yeah.
And, the same process exists almost in reverse in terms of rather than, I guess, optimizing production, it's really about optimizing injectivity. So the same process of, gathering data, analyzing data and taking intervention actions from whether that's the surface injection system to the well to the interface between them and the reservoir still applies, for CCUS. So I think the principles of production optimizations can apply, across any environment where we're talking wells, really, whether that's CCUS, geothermal, or conventional oil and gas.
Brilliant. Well, I'm done, Iain. I don't know if you're done, but I appreciate your time. I know you're busy, and thank you very much.
Not a problem. Thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure, and thanks to you for watching this latest podcast. Catch up with the others on the Expro website, and until we meet again, thank you and goodbye from Expro.